This video has been recorded in 2021 and has been updated for the re-release. However, a few information might be outdated. Have you ever thought about how it would be to lose your hometown? Okay, that's a big question, I know. Let me explain. Imagine you're living in a village, a small, beautiful village, let's say in the west of Germany. You're living here for 20 years, 30 years, 40, maybe your whole life, but then someday somebody knocks on your door and says, you have to leave, because your house and also the village around it will be torn down and you can never come back. Well, that sounds kinda strange, like a story from a bad movie or something, but in fact, this is not a movie. This is really happening. It's happening since almost 60 years, right here in the west of Germany. Today, I'd like to talk to you about abandoned ghost towns. I'd like to talk to you about coal and climate change. And I'd like to tell you the story of a beautiful old town that once looked like this. And meanwhile, it looks like this. What the heck is happening here? The place I'm standing right now is called Garzweiler, a massive surface mine between Cologne and Aachen. This whole area measures 48 square kilometers. 40 million tons of lignite, a type of brown coal, are mined here every year. And Garzweiler is not the only lignite mine here. If you drive a few kilometers further south, you will find the Inden surface mine and the Hambach surface mine. All these mines together form the largest lignite mining area in all of Europe. I think I don't have to mention that this is actually not good. Well, it's 2021, climate change is already here, and we're still digging coal out of the ground to burn it. That seems kinda stupid, doesn't it? But in fact, that's not the only problem here. Because of this mining area, a lot of nature has been destroyed over the past decades. Grasslands have been destroyed, forests have been destroyed, and also the quality of the drinking water is impaired because of coal mining. Because of that, the protests against this mining area have been massive recently. This forest right behind me is a quite prominent example for that. It's called the Hambach forest, a 500-hectare wooded area that was supposed to be cut down for mining. Hundreds of activists occupied the forest for years to save it from destruction, and in the end, they were successful. First, a court forbade the clearing of the forest. Later, the government also announced that they wanted to preserve this area. The Hambach forest was a huge topic in German and European media in 2018, and in the end, the story turned out well. But to be honest, this was just an exception. The lignite mines are still destroying landscapes every day, and they do not only destroy forests and nature. Welcome to Mannheim, a small village near the town of Kerpen, and a village that will be completely torn down to enlarge the Hambach surface mine in 2023. As you can see here, Mannheim is already a ghost town. Since 2012, the residents are being relocated, a lot of houses already have been demolished, and the excavator of the surface mine is eating its way closer and closer to the village. Let's take a little walk through the village. This is the entrance of Mannheim, and the first thing you will see is actually a sign that says, please drive careful, because there are children living in this village. In fact, I think the children, meanwhile, are all gone. But what you see here on the right is some kind of a farm or something. There are still cars behind the gate, so I think there are still people living here. There's still some farm machine doing things. But if you take a look over here, right beside the farm, there you will see the first abandoned houses. As you can see here, This was not just a living house, this obviously was also some kind of, I don't know, shop? Insurance company? Whatever. Or maybe, a doctor. Maybe a doctor. Because you can see the opening hours here. Okay, what you see here is some kind of tradition we have here in Germany called the Sternsinger, star singers. And if I read that correct, the Sternsinger were here last time in 2008. And then they never came back. Here you see the same. The last time they marked this house was in 2011. And then everybody left. Okay, here you have some kind of newspapers or commercial papers or something. But nobody's here to read them. All the people are already gone. And what you see here is the old church. This church was built in 1900, which means this church is 121 years old. If we take a closer look, you see they removed all of the windows and they also removed the clock. You see that? 121 years old. If you want to visit the church, don't even try. They put a huge concrete block in front of the door so nobody can enter. There's also some kind of security car driving around here all the time. So here we have a little park or something. I don't know exactly what that was, but I think in the middle there was some kind of monument or something, maybe a few benches or something. And here we have a typical old German pub. You will find pubs like this in every small German village. It's the place where they also celebrate traditional festivals, for example a Karneval or a Schützenfest, which is quite huge in this area here. All these festivals are normally celebrated in pubs like this, and since this place is so close to Cologne, of course Kölsch was served here, a famous beer. Yeah, but that was a long time ago. Meanwhile, there are no parties anymore because everybody's already gone. There is this graffiti you see basically on every corner when you walk through these villages. It says RWE zerstört Leben, which basically means the electricity company RWE destroys lives. Maybe they don't destroy lives, but they definitely destroy houses and villages and nature. Spring is coming, obviously, but also these beautiful flowers will be destroyed like the rest of the village. Imagine you're living in a house like this. Look at this architecture. It looks so special. And here you see what it's like to live alone in an abandoned ghost town. Bewohnt is written on this thing, which basically means there are people living in this house. It's like a warning sign. The residents do that because there are a lot of thieves going through the whole village, and they break into these houses and they steal the copper lines because you can make money out of it. If there are still people living in these houses, they put a sign on the walls to show this is not an abandoned house, there are still people living in here, don't come in. This little village, Mannheim, is more than 1,000 years old, and it takes only a few weeks to tear it down. And Mannheim is by far not the only place with this history. Since the 1960s, dozens of villages have been razed to the ground for coal mining, and a lot more will follow. One of the latest villages that have been destroyed for coal mining is called Borchemich. When I visited this place the very first time in 2012, Borchemich looked like this. A wonderful, idyllic place with a lot of historic buildings. For example, an old church built in 1906, an old linden tree at the entrance of the village, a cemetery, and even a small castle called Haus Paland from 1296 was standing here. And today, in 2021, all that's left of Borchemich is this. That's the old entrance of the village that just doesn't exist anymore. I took a few pictures of Borchemich 5 years ago, and if you swipe up now and look at the GPS data, you will see I took these pictures obviously in the middle of nowhere. There are no streets, there is nothing. The whole village is completely deleted from the map, like in reality. Just a few kilometers away from Borchemich, there used to be this village called Immerath. All that's left of this place are actually the roads. All of the houses have been torn down meanwhile, and in just a few months, also this area will be dredged out. And even though it's 2021 and there are major protests against coal mining in this area, Borchemich, Mannheim and Immerath will not be the last villages that will be destroyed. The next and probably the last one on the list is a place called Lützerath. You might have heard about it in the news because also here there have been a lot of protests against its demolition. In the end, those protests were not successful. Lützerath will be torn down this year. However, a few other villages have been saved from demolition. For example, this place right here, a village called Keienberg. You can still see a lot of protest signs on the walls. Alle Dörfer bleiben is written here, for example, which means all villages remain. But the truth is, a lot of residents already have left the village, and even though Keienberg will not be torn down, it is in fact a lost place. So, now you might ask yourself, how can all this happen? And why can an energy company like RWE just tear down dozens of villages? There is something in the German law which is called Bergrecht or mining law. It basically means that the supply of energy in this country must be ensured. So this supply in the law is more important than a forest or a village with hundreds of years of history. So what's happening is the electricity company, in this case RWE, more or less buys the whole area. They pay the house owners to build a new house, and then a whole new village is built just a few kilometers away from here, and the people will be so-called relocated. A former resident of Borchemich, Josephine Arment, told me for a report I did in 2017 how this all works.
Ach, die haben das in hohen Tönen gelobt. Ich bin mir vorgekommen, als wenn die uns was schenken würden. Stimmt aber nicht. Sie kriegen das, was ihr altes Haus wert ist, das kriegen sie ersetzt. Aber viele können nicht von dem Geld neu bauen. Sind viele, die sich auch noch in Schulden gesetzt haben.
Well, and money, of course, is not the only thing you lose when somebody destroys your hometown.
Ich meine, unser neuer Ort ist sehr schön. Er ist sehr schön, muss ich ehrlich sagen. Auch wir fühlen uns wohl hier. Aber es ist unser alter Ort, den kann man nicht ersetzen. Das kann man nicht rübertragen. 1:1, das geht nicht. Unsere wunderschöne Anlage, herrlich, die war herrlich. Wurde ehrenamtlich alles in Ordnung gehalten. Von Bürgerinnen und Bürgern. Mit den Grotten. Einmalig. Einmalig. Ich bin wohl, sind wir da durchgefahren mit dem Auto und habe gesehen, wie der Schutthaufen unseres Hauses, wie das da lag. Das war einfach furchtbar. Das kann man sich nicht vorstellen. Wer das nicht mitgemacht hat, kann sich das nicht vorstellen.
And that's how the new Borchemich looks like. You see a small residential area behind me without any history. They also built a house for the fire brigade, and they also built a brand new church, which looks totally different from the old one. And what you see here is a roundabout, a very special roundabout. On this roundabout, the residents of Borchemich planted a new linden tree. At least a little reminder of the beautiful old village that is now completely gone.